All right, so by now we've spent a lot of time talking about how to cook and eat in ways that are low cost and high nutrition, but all of that's kind of for naught if we can't figure out how to make it sustainable. And frequently, when I'm reading books or I'm watching television programs or listening to lectures about how to cook and eat healthfully, I feel like this is the part that's often missed. And so I wanted to be sure to end on this note. So, one of the things I want us to consider is how do we make healthy food the default option? And so, I mean, at work or school or in the airport. How about when you're on the go, right? Or when you don't have the time or energy to cook? When you get a hunger pang and you need something now, right? Or when you get a specific craving for something salty or sweet. So think about kind of some of these different scenarios and how you might problem solve around how are you going to have a healthy food be the default option in some of these scenarios. So for instance, at the airport, the chances of you getting hungry are pretty high, especially if you have a flight that's been delayed or if you have a layover or if you're flying out very early in the morning and you don't really have the appetite to eat breakfast before you leave, right? Think about situations like this in advance and say, how can I prepare for this? How can I bring food to have available for me in case any of these things happen? So one of the ways to do this is to stay stocked. And I mean stay stocked in your car, in your backpack, your purse, your desk at work, your pantry, your fridge, or your freezer, right? And so each of these places probably are going to need some type of food for when one of these situations arises. And so to think about what types of food you might want there, right? So in your car, obviously you're not going to want anything that's chocolatey. It's going to melt, right? Or anything that has to stay cold. But perhaps a trail mix or something that doesn't have any chocolate in it or some mixed nuts or some kind of packaged good you might want to just keep kind of in your console next to you in case you get stuck in traffic or you need kind of a quick pick-me-up. And it's going to be either fast food or something you have in your car, right? So again, kind of go through some of these situations and think about how you can stay stocked to make food that's healthy the default option. So some of my favorite single-serving, nutrient-dense snacks for when you're trying to stay stocked. I mentioned some trail mix. Dried fruit can be a good one. Unsweetened applesauce, right? So applesauce that is just apples and perhaps some cinnamon and doesn't have a whole bunch of added sugar, right? You can buy those in single-serving containers. They're shelf-stable, right? And it's basically like eating an apple, but perhaps in a form that's a little bit more enjoyable for you. Whole fruit that you can carry around is always an option, something like a banana or an orange or an apple. And then fruit cups. So similarly to these unsweetened applesauce single servings that you see here, you can buy chopped up fruit in little cups, again, shelf stable. And you want to look for fruit that's in its own juice, not fruit that's in light syrup or especially heavy syrup, right? So fruit in its own juice. So these are for the folks who kind of like the sweet snacks, right? I am much more of a salty, savory snacker. And so for people who are salty, savory snackers, maybe you're going to think about something like nuts. These harvest snaps, if you've probably seen those in the grocery store, on the upper right here, I have one example. Lots of different flavors, generally pretty few added sugars. Like I said, these are pretty savory. And they're made out of things like lentils and beans. They're packed with fiber. They have quite a bit of sodium, so keep an eye on that. And then they have some pretty heart-healthy oils that are added in not too high amounts, right? So think about something like these harvest snaps. Another one you see on the lower right here are these chickpea snacks. So roasted chickpeas. You can buy these in the store. And again, they're just chickpeas, salt, a little bit of oil, and maybe a few little seasonings. Or you can make your own at home in the air fryer. Brown rice cakes with some peanut butter or some almond butter, which again, you can buy in single serving packets. You see an example here. Same with popcorn. You could do dry roasted edamame, or if you want something a little more substantial, kind of like for a mid-afternoon snack, maybe something like a wheat thins with packets of tuna, right? Feel free to get the flavored tuna if you like that. And when it comes to wheat thins, I really like the reduced fat wheat thins. They're a little crunchier, they have fewer calories, less fat, there's still lots of whole grains, and a pretty health-promoting ultra-processed food. And I want to just pull out one here, which is popcorn. There's lots of different types of popcorn, of course. I would say if you're at home, you can make it yourself in the microwave, right? So you can take a brown paper bag, put some popcorn in it, make it in the microwave and you can quote unquote air pop it in the microwave. That way you don't have any of the additives that you might find in this microwave popcorn. Certainly you can control the salt and the oil, right? And so in that way, it's going to be much more health promoting. If you're out and about and you want to keep some pre-popped popcorn on you, there are lots of pre-packaged options that are quite healthy. Again, just pay attention to the amount of fat, the amount of salt, and particularly the type of fat. So again, we're thinking about how we can reduce our saturated fat intake. So look for popcorn that's not going to be fried or cooked in coconut oil, which is very high in saturated fat, but instead some other type of oil, like an olive oil or a canola oil, a soybean oil, an avocado oil, one of these oils that are higher in mono and polyunsaturated fats. But popcorn we think about as a whole grain. So as long as it doesn't have too much saturated fat and not a lot of salt, that's definitely going to be a good option. So think about whether you're a sweet snacker or a savory snacker and how you can keep some of these stocked for when a hunger pang or a craving hits. Next tip, pack your lunch. So I know this is sometimes a lot of work to do, and so some advanced planning can really help. So identify a conveniently located fridge at work or school. Invest in a lunchbox that you really like. It has to be big enough. You have to like the layout. It has to be stylish. You have to be excited. It has to be easy to either put in your backpack or to carry. And if any of those things are not true, you're going to be like kind of annoyed to use it, and you're going to come up with an excuse to instead buy lunch wherever you're going instead of packing your own. So I know it sounds pedantic, but put some effort into really picking out a lunchbox that's going to work for you. And then pack the night before. Again, you're going to be looking for any excuse to not pack your lunch. And so get that lunchbox packed the night before so that when you wake up at the last second or if you snooze your alarm clock too long, you're still going to have that lunch packed and ready to go. Step 3, redesign your food environment. And so what do I mean by that? These healthy options should be easily accessible. So keep healthy stuff out on the counter where you walk by the kitchen and that's what you're going to see, right? Keep those healthy things in the front of your pantry, your fridge, or your freezer, right? So when you kind of open the door of the pantry or the fridge at night and you say, I'm hungry, I want a snack, what should I eat? Those healthy things are really going to jump out at you first. And then similarly, take those things that are perhaps a little less healthy, right, and make them less accessible. Put them up high or put them in the back of your pantry. Put them in the back of the freezer. If it's in your fridge, put it on lower shelves or hide them in the drawers, right, and keep those healthier options somewhere where it's easier to access. This next tip comes from a friend of mine who was actually my roommate in med school. He's now a family physician himself, and he suggests to his patients that they should really grocery shop once per week or less. And the reason for this is if you're shopping more than that, the grocery store effectively becomes your home pantry, right? Whenever you need something, you just pop at the grocery store. So that's more opportunities to buy those chips and those Oreos and the ice cream and things like that. And then it really is almost like your home pantry, your fridge, and your freezer are becoming confluent with the grocery store. Whereas if you go grocery shopping once per week, you really have the opportunity to keep your home food environment quite separate from the grocery store. So I really like that tip. Okay, so now that we have some tips for kind of redesigning our food environment and making healthy choices, the default one, I want to talk a little bit about mindful eating. So this may be a new infographic to you. This is called the hunger gauge, and I think it does a really nice job of helping us to learn to identify our internal hunger cues. Many of us have totally lost sense of hunger because we're kind of eating for other reasons. But really, if we can get back in touch with eating when we're hungry and not eating too much, then we can really, I think, eat an appropriate amount of energy and really enjoy eating much more. So as you see on this hunger gauge here, when you are starving, you're down by a 1 or a 2, that's really all you can think about is eating, right? We don't really want ourselves to ever get down to a 1 or to a 2. If you eat a meal, you might get up to like a 6, a 7, an 8. And then after a few hours, of course, the hunger is going to start to set in. And that number is a 4. That's where those hunger signals start. And again, we don't really want those hunger signals to get so strong that we're down at a 1 or a 2. So we really want to consider eating when we get down to something like a 4. When we do eat, of course, we want to eat until we're satisfied. We don't want to eat until we're totally stuffed or too full, right? So perhaps we want to eat until we're like a 6 or maybe a 7, and we really don't want to get up to that number 8 or higher because that's where discomfort sets in. So again, just kind of knowing that this hunger gauge exists and paying attention to our cues and putting a number on them, I think can really help us eat at appropriate times and eat an appropriate amount. There are other components of mindful eating besides the hunger gauge. For instance, we want to ask ourselves when we're eating, what is this food going to do for me, right? Is this going to just purely fulfill my hunger? Or am I looking for this to boost my energy? Am I looking for this to numb some emotions? Am I eating this to support my health, right? What is the role for this food? How much food do I need to feel satisfied? So thinking, how do I get to a 6 out of a 10 on that hunger gauge? And why do I want this food? Right? Is it because of emotions? Is it because I'm bored? Is it because it would just be convenient? Is it because I'm just like, it would be nice to eat right now. That kind of would feel nice. Is it due to social cues? Perhaps you're not hungry at all. You really don't want to eat, but like you're at a birthday party and everyone's eating and okay, I guess I should eat to fulfill these social cues or these norms. Or are we truly eating for hunger? Right? So kind of being in touch with why we're eating and what we hope the food will do for us and how much food we might need to eat to be satisfied are all important parts of mindful eating. But there are some other important parts as well, right? So we want to consider thirst versus hunger and attend to each of those differently, right? So sometimes we might feel like we're hungry, but actually we're just thirsty. So if you drink a big glass of water, you realize, okay, I wasn't hungry after all, and that I can just, satisfy that with some water and move on. Other times, you try that and you realize, nope, I was hungry, and then it's time to eat. So again, the more we can be in touch with our hunger cues and our thirst cues, the better. We want to minimize distractions while we're eating. You are much more likely to eat much more food if you are eating while you're distracted, right? Eating should be an enjoyable ritual, right? I feel like, for instance, Europeans are much better at doing that than we are. We think of how can I eat as quickly as possible so I can get back to my work or back to my meeting? How can I eat while I'm in the car to save time, right? And we think of it as a chore. But really, eating is like one of the most enjoyable things that we get to do in life, and we get to do it multiple times a day. So we need to really get all of the joy that we can out of the eating ritual and not treat it as a chore. That's certainly part of mindful eating. To that end, chewing slowly and completely and really enjoying the taste, the texture, the temperature, the smell of the food while we're eating it, engaging all of your senses are some great techniques to really enjoy what you're eating. And you can even say to yourself, as you're eating something or after you ate something, what did I enjoy about this bite? So for instance, if I'm eating a little bit of dark chocolate, one bite I might say, I really enjoyed that crispness when I bit off that piece of dark chocolate. And then the next bite, I might enjoy the subtle sweetness. The next bite, I might enjoy the complex bitterness. The last bite, I might enjoy how it melts on my tongue, right? Even as I'm talking about this, you're probably thinking, oh, that chocolate eating experience sounds so good. And that's very different than if you sit down with the chocolate bar, you're watching TV, you're stressed out and sad, and you just kind of shovel the whole chocolate bar in, right? So it really takes some active effort to do this, but you will enjoy the process of eating much more, and you're more likely to both enjoy healthy foods and not overindulge on the foods that are perhaps a little bit less health promoting. Now, I think where some people get tripped up is restaurants. It can be kind of easy to eat well at home, and then when you're out at a restaurant, all holds barred, it becomes very difficult to make healthy choices, right? So one of my favorite tips is to actually look at the restaurant menu before you go when you're not starving, right? Perhaps you have a long day at work, you get out to the restaurant, you have a drink or two, and then you decide what to eat. You're probably less likely to make a health-promoting choice compared to if you look at the menu in advance. Obviously, if you can, opting for plant-based dishes or ordering some lean proteins in preparations that are not breaded and deep fried, so things like baked and broiled, can be a great way to get, again, lean proteins, fiber, fruits, vegetables, save on saturated fat and calories, and really make a health-promoting choice that's going to keep you full throughout the lunch or throughout the evening. Choosing fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes as sides can, again, be a great way to amp up the kind of fiber on the side to keep you fuller longer. You can ask for the sauces or the dressings to be served on the side. It's very common to have a relatively health-promoting dish within a very large serving of sauce that's probably packed with a lot of sodium and a lot of perhaps saturated fat, right? And so for asking those things on the side, that can really kind of save you some calories and some fat and some sugar, some salt, right? And then you can use just the amount that you like. Pay attention to portion size. Again, this is something that's done better in other places in the world compared to here, but here we have very, very large portions. So take a look at the portion when it arrives and say, is this a reasonable amount of food and a reasonable amount of energy for me to consume in one meal? Or perhaps should I think about packing some of this up before I even dig in? And that helps you really decide how much of that food you want to eat at that sitting. And when you're thinking about saving money, if you take half of it home, you have a whole nother meal later that you can eat, and it's going to save you some money that way. This is something I started doing in college that I highly recommend, and that's consuming the thing on your plate that's most health promoting first, and then moving in kind of order of most to least health promoting. The reason I say that is when I was in college, I went to these dorm cafeteria halls, right, where you could get all you can eat, whatever you want. I would every time get way too much food, right? And then I would eat all of the junk food kind of first. And then by the time I got to the broccoli, I was like, well, I don't think I'm really that hungry anymore. And I would skip the broccoli, right? So instead, look at your plate, kind of choose the things that are healthiest, eat some of those first, and then move on to those more indulgent, shall we say, things a little bit later. And then finally, if you are not going to choose alcohol at all, you're definitely going to save money. You're almost certainly going to save calories and sugar as well, right? And if you are going to consume alcohol, do so in moderation, right? And choose those alcoholic beverages that are lower calorie or lower sugar alcoholic beverages. So for instance, I love a strawberry daiquiri or a pina colada. Tons of added sugar, right? So going to be a lot of added sugar and calories there. But if you're looking for something a little lighter, maybe you want something like a beer or a wine or a vodka soda with lime, another one of my go-tos. So just think about those different options when you're going out, when you're choosing your beverages as well. So I want to just briefly introduce you to this new concept for a lot of people called lifestyle medicine. So lifestyle medicine is this new field that says that we can prevent, treat, and in some instances even reverse chronic conditions just based on how we live our life. And there are 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. So we've spent a long time talking about how to eat a plant-predominant diet, right? But there are lots of other pillars here, and the key is that they all support each other. So if you are trying to make a healthy diet sustainable, I like to think of all these other pillars as kind of on-ramps to healthy eating. Or, sometimes perhaps you go out and you focus on exercise, and that's kind of your goal for your health this week. But then after you go to the gym, are you really going to want to come home and kind of eat ice cream and pizza? Or are you going to want to carry forward that health-promoting activity that you just did by eating more fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, legumes, right? Or another example, imagine you're only sleeping like 2 or 3 hours a night. You're probably not going to be making the healthiest choices during the day, right? For me, it's going to be Uber Eats and fast food and chips off the shelf, right? But if you're getting those 8 or 9 hours, you're probably going to be making some healthier choices when it comes to your food during the day. The same thing can go for over-imbibing and risky substances, right? That might lead to some poor food choices. If we're stressed or lonely, those things could lead to some poor food choices. So in general, thinking about all of these pillars and how they can work together to make a healthy eating pattern sustainable, I think can be really, really helpful. And then finally, I want you to find your why. And so what do I mean by that? Everyone has a different motivation to eat healthily, right? So for some, it may be longevity. We want a long health span, many years of life spent with functional health. For others, it might be maintaining a healthy weight, preserving our function, being able to do the things that we like into old age, feeling comfortable in our body, right? Maybe it's about aesthetics for you, or maybe it's about having time, longer time on earth, spent doing hobbies. Maybe you really like your work and you want more time to work. I find myself in that camp. Maybe you want to spend more time with family and friends, right? Think about all these potential reasons for why you might want to eat healthily, to spend a long time functional here on earth. What do you like to do? And how would healthy eating perhaps get you there? So think about what's your why. And then make a plan to eat healthily, right? We can have all the knowledge in the world, but if we don't make a plan to actually do it, we're going to come up against barriers, and we don't want those barriers to overcome us, right? So think about whether you want to make a big change in your life or a small change. If you're looking to just make some small changes, you got kind of other things on your mind, a big test or some dissertation work coming up, maybe you want to focus on small changes. If you are super motivated for whatever reason and you want to make some big changes right now, that's okay too. So wherever you find yourself, embrace either those big or small changes as you make a plan to improve your healthy eating. In general, I like to encourage eat more changes before eat less changes. So these eat less changes feel really restrictive, right? Oh gosh, I need to do this. I need to cut this out of my diet. Now I can't eat ice cream. The doctor said I have to cut sodium, right? Not fun, really, to make some of those changes, even if they would be health promoting. Instead, I like to encourage these eat more changes. Eat more broccoli, right? Or try eating another piece of fruit every day if you're not eating much fruit. And if you focus on these eat more changes, you're going to build kind of some success and you're going to feel good about that. And then you might be able to implement some of these eat less changes, or you might find yourself eating fewer of those unhealthy, quote unquote, foods anyway, because you're eating more of these healthy ones and they kind of crowd out those less health promoting food choices. Make lifestyle or dietary changes a social endeavor. And so I have a friend who's particularly competitive. And so sometimes we have a friendly competition about who can, work out more or eat healthier one week or something like that. I would say I'm more cooperative. And so for me, it might be like a group effort where we all get together and we're trying to spend more time outside going on walks, or when we get together, we try to choose more health promoting foods, right? So think about how you can make this a social endeavor, whether you're the cooperative type of person or the competitive type of person. And like I said, that's not just healthy cooking and eating, but it can include exercise and some of these other pillars of lifestyle medicine as well. And then finally, I would say expect, embrace, and even aim for imperfection. So don't just say to yourself, oh, well, I guess I'm imperfect sometimes and I guess I'll get over it. No, I would say the goal is to be imperfect. There is really no point in eating 100% perfectly all the time. The difference between eating 97% perfect and 100% perfect, clinically, totally irrelevant, I would say. So really aim for imperfection. Make room for that. I would say consider relative versus absolute harm. What do I mean by that? We know with pretty good certainty that consuming more processed red meats, something like bacon, is going to increase your risk for colon cancer. Now, if you eat 2 slices of bacon every day, is that going to increase your risk for colon cancer the same as if you eat a couple slices of bacon when you go out to eat with your partner every few months? No. Right? So consider what that relative harm is versus that absolute harm, and that can help you, I think, practice healthy eating in a really sensible way with much less stress. Have some self-compassion when you're doing it. Like I said, we're aiming for imperfection here. We're not trying to be perfect. And sometimes we'll eat in a way that perhaps we're not super happy with. And understand that's part of our journey with healthy eating. That's part of being a human and being alive. And do not beat yourself up about it. Don't, fall off the wagon, right? Just have some self-compassion. One of my favorite things to recommend to people is to appreciate food as more than medicine. So I'm a physician, and physicians are frequently telling patients, well, oh, your blood pressure is too high, stop eating sodium. Your blood sugar is too high, no more desserts, right? But really, food is so much more than just medicine. And as a chef, I totally understand that. And so I want to emphasize to you that food is not only medicine, it's what I call the 6 C's. It's community, it's culture, it's comfort, it's creativity, it's connection, and it's a way to celebrate. Food is celebration, right? So if we can embrace food in all of its different facets, not just as medicine, and we can learn to really incorporate it for all of these different aspects in our lives, we'll really improve, I think, our relationship of food, our understanding of food, and our appreciation of food, and we'll, I think, be able to make healthy eating much more sustainable looking into the future. So I'm going to leave you on that note. We've covered a lot throughout these videos, and my goal is that you feel like you're a little more educated in what it means to eat a healthy diet. You feel a little bit more prepared, given all the practical information that we've talked about, to put it into practice, that you feel excited and motivated to make some changes, and that you feel like you have the tools necessary to improve your relationship with food, not just in the short term, but for the long term, to enjoy healthy food, not just as a chore, not just for your health, but as a way to celebrate and be alive with people that you love. So with that, I'm going to sign off and wish you happy cooking and happy eating.
Thanks for joining us for this video series. I hope you found these tips and recipes helpful and that you feel more confident about shopping and cooking affordably. This series is just one part of the Yale Graduate and Professional Student Senate's ongoing efforts to address food insecurity in our student community. We will continue working with administrators to drive meaningful structural change. But in the meantime, know that you have these resources and support available to you. For more resources or to share your thoughts about this effort, please don't hesitate to reach out to us using the contact form on our website, which is linked down below in the video description. Also, if you found this series helpful, be sure to share it with your friends and fellow students. Together, we can make a positive impact on the well-being of the graduate and professional community at Yale. Thank you for watching, and happy cooking.